I thought I was too far gone, too much damage done, too much truth I buried.
The sun is finally tucking itself behind that tree line out there.
Yeah, it's getting to be that time of day.
It really is. You know, there's this specific 5-minute window right about now, just as the day is sort of giving up the ghost, where the world just exhales. Everything gets a little quieter. The crickets haven't fully started, but the birds are done. It feels like the right setting for where we need to go today. I'm your host, by the way, and I'm glad you're sitting with us for this deep dive.
And I'm your resident analyst, and I have to agree. It's a very reflective time of day. Photographers call it the blue hour. And it fits because we aren't looking at a white paper or a tech review this time. We're just sitting here with a song.
A song, which is a bit of a curveball for our usual deep dives.
Yeah.
Normally, you and I are tearing apart a business strategy or some historical event.
True. But you sent this track Over Too Far Gone by Ragged River Revival, and I have to admit, I sat with these lyrics for a long time before I even really listened to the melody.
It's one of those tracks that just gets stuck in your head, but not because it's catchy. It sticks because it feels heavy. It feels true.
Yeah, it really does.
And honestly, looking at these words printed out on the page here, it reads less like a folk song and more like a confession.
That's exactly how I read it. It is a confession.
Yeah.
But what struck me immediately, and what I really want to dig into while we have this quiet moment, isn't just the sadness of it. It's the logic.
The logic.
Right. This isn't just a song about being blue. It's a song about the specific, twisted architecture of lies we build to make sense of our isolation. It maps out a very specific human geography, the distance between where we are and where we think we should be.
Oh, I like that, the architecture of lies. And, you know, our mission for this deep dive is to unpack that exact emotional trajectory. We want to see how this narrator goes from absolute despair to this quiet realization at the end. Because that distance you mentioned, it's established right out of the gate.
It really sets the stakes immediately.
Right. He sings, I used to pray like someone was listening. Used to wait for heaven to reply. Now I just talk to the dark in the distance. Like I already know why.
That is a brutal opening. Just brutal.
It hits you right in the gut. But let's unpack that first part, the used to.
Well, that is the crucial context for everything that follows. This isn't an atheist who never believed in anything. There's a history here.
A history of trying.
Exactly. This is someone who knocked on the door, waited, and in his view, got absolutely nothing. The silence isn't new. It's the result of a long, exhausting period of waiting.
It's the disappointment that stands out to me. But it's that last line that really hooks me. Now I just talk to the dark like I already know why. It's not just that he stopped praying. It's that he thinks he's solved the puzzle of the silence.
Right. He's filled in the blank himself. And that is the very first trap the narrator falls into. And frankly, it's one you and I and everyone listening fall into all the time.
Oh, absolutely.
When the universe gives us silence, we don't just sit in it. We rush to interpret it. We crave a narrative. And usually the interpretation we invent is the one that confirms the worst things we already believe about ourselves.
So the narrative becomes, they aren't answering because I don't deserve an answer.
Precisely. He assumes the silence is a judgment. He projects his own self-loathing right onto that empty space and says, see, I knew it. The dark agrees with me.
Which leads right into the real consequences he's dealing with. Because it's not all in his head. He continues in that first verse, I cross some lines I don't talk about, burn some bridges I can't pretend.
And we have to cover this ground because it grounds the whole song in reality. We often talk about shame as this vague, nebulous cloud like, oh, I just feel bad today.
Right.
But here the narrator's being very specific, even if he doesn't give us the gory details. Burn bridges implies real-world wreckage.
He's not just feeling moody. He's actually done some damage.
He has. Relationships have ended. Trust has been broken. There is literal smoke rising from the ground behind him. We don't know if it was an affair, or a crime, or addiction, or just cruel words spoken in anger.
Sure.
But the what doesn't matter nearly as much as the result. He can't pretend it didn't happen.
And that reality makes the isolation feel justified to him.
Yeah.
That's the tricky part, isn't it?
It is.
Because if you've actually hurt people, if you've actually messed up, it is very easy to look at your life and say, well, the math checks out. I deserve to be sitting out here alone.
It's a courtroom where you are the prosecutor, the judge, and the defendant all at once. And you have plenty of evidence to convict yourself.
Yeah.
He follows it with this devastating observation. After a while, you stop asking forgiveness when you don't think it's there to give.
Man, that is the sound of the door closing. Not the door from the outside, but the door from the inside.
It's almost an economic assumption. He's applying a scarcity mindset to grace. He thinks forgiveness is a finite resource, like a bank account, and he's completely overdrawn. He thinks he's spent his allowance.
Which perfectly sets up the pre-chorus. And this is where I think the self-deception really kicks into high gear. He sings, "I learned how to live with the silence." Called it peace, but it wasn't that.
Called it peace, but it wasn't that. That line, it just stops me every time I hear it. It's a perfect description of a survival mechanism.
How so?
Think about the biology of it. If you sit in a dark room long enough, your eyes adjust. You stop straining to see, you stop fighting the dark. And because the struggle stops, your body relaxes.
And you mistake that lack of struggle for peace.
Exactly. But it's not peace, it's numbness. It's the calm of a graveyard, not a garden.
Wow.
Numbness masquerades as peace because it's pain-free in the immediate moment. If you stop expecting an answer, you can't be disappointed. It's a way of protecting yourself from the pain of hope.
That's a powerful thought. That we choose numbness because hope is actually the more painful option.
Hope requires vulnerability. Numbness is safe. It's a fortress. But inside that fortress, the air gets stale very, very quickly.
And that leads us right into the chorus. This is where the song really lays out that logic of his despair you mentioned earlier.
Through the mathematics of shame.
Yeah, the math. He sings, "I thought I was too far gone. Too much damage done, too much truth I buried. Figured grace had a shorter reach than the mess I was carrying."
Look at the spatial metaphor he's using there. Reach versus mess. He is literally standing there looking at the size of his mistakes, the depth of the hole he's dug, and he's comparing it to his concept of grace.
Right.
And he has calculated that the mess is physically larger.
Figured grace had a shorter reach. It implies that grace is a physical thing with a hard limit, like a rope that's only 10 feet long. But he knows for an absolute fact he's standing in a 12-foot hole.
And to him, that feels like a rational conclusion. That's the tragic part of this whole thing. He's not being emotional. He's doing the math.
Yeah.
He's looking at the evidence of his life, the buried truth, the damage, and saying, the numbers don't add up. I am outside the radius. It's simply a matter of physics.
But the chorus continues, and he says, "So I stopped knocking on heaven's door, stopped hoping for mercy to come. Yeah, I believe the lie real strong that I was too far gone."
Notice how he explicitly calls it a lie.
Right.
That is fascinating self-awareness in retrospect. But in the moment, it feels like the absolute truth. It feels like humility, doesn't it? To say, I'm just too bad for this.
It really does.
Oh, yeah.
It sounds like you're taking full responsibility. I'm the worst. I'm unfixable. It has this ring of nobility to it, like you're falling on your sword for the good of everyone else.
But the song identifies it as a lie.
Yeah.
Because thinking you are too far gone isn't humility at all. It's actually a form of hopelessness that shuts down any possibility of change.
How do you mean?
Well, if you are too far gone, you don't have to try to come back. You can just stay in the dark. It's the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card, except the card keeps you in jail.
Which connects right back to what we said about the numbness. Believing the lie is actually safer than risking the journey back. If I'm unfixable, I don't have to do the hard work of fixing anything. I can just sit on the porch in the dark and brood.
Precisely. It's a tragic comfort. It relieves you of the burden of effort.
Let's move to the second verse, because this is where things get really interesting regarding his background. He sings, "I still knew the songs, still knew the verses, still knew how the story should end, but knowing about a savior ain't the same as letting him in."
This creates a very specific profile for our narrator. This isn't someone who is ignorant of the concept of redemption. He knows the verses. He probably grew up in it.
He has the vocabulary.
He knows all the theory.
It's that classic head knowledge versus heart knowledge.
Yes, but let's go a little deeper than the cliche. Think about inoculation, like a vaccine. Sometimes having just enough exposure to religion or philosophy gives you just enough immunity to miss the actual cure.
Oh, that's interesting.
He has the information in his brain, but there's a profound blockage. He says, I told myself. He saves the broken, just not the kind that look like me.
That line always jumps out at me. Just not the kind that look like me. What do you think he's implying there?
I think he means the specific variety of his brokenness. We're often very comfortable with the idea of a noble sinner, someone who made a mistake but has a heart of gold, or a victim of circumstance.
Right, the guy who steals bread to feed his starving family.
Exactly. We like that story. But when we look at our own darkness, the petty stuff, the shameful stuff, the secrets we buried, as he said earlier, we think, surely grace doesn't cover this specific brand of ugly.
And then he delivers what might be the most complex thought in the whole song. Somewhere between regret and pride, I decided I was beyond belief.
Regret and pride. Now, pause on that pairing for a second. Those seem like total opposites, don't they?
Usually, yeah. Regret is, I feel bad, I'm lower than dirt. Pride is, I feel good about myself, I'm better than you.
But here, they are working together as a team to keep him isolated. Regret says, I wish I hadn't done it. That keeps him looking backward. But pride. Pride plays a much sneakier game here. Pride says, my sin is too special to be forgiven.
Whoa. Hang on. Pride says my sin is special. I usually think of pride as thinking you're great.
That's the common definition, sure. But there is a much darker side to pride. To say, I am beyond belief, to say, I am the one exception to the rule of grace, is actually a massive ego trip.
I never thought of it that way.
It assumes that you are so powerful, your mistakes are so massive, that they can defeat the very concept of mercy. It's the arrogance of despair.
That is heavy. You think you're being humble by saying you're unfixable, but you're actually saying you're bigger than the fix.
Exactly. It's the special sinner complex. Sure, grace works for regular people, but you don't know what I did. It keeps you right at the center of the universe. It's inverted narcissism.
Yeah.
You're still completely obsessed with yourself. You're just obsessed with how bad you are. You're the villain of the story. But hey, at least you're still the main character.
That completely recontextualizes the whole verse for me. It's not just sadness. It's a fortress of ego.
It is. And that leads perfectly into the second pre-chorus. Funny how shame sounds like wisdom when you've been carrying it long enough.
Shame sounds like wisdom. That feels like one of those lines you could tattoo on your arm and just look at every day.
To me, that is the single most dangerous line in the song because we value wisdom, especially as we get older, right? We spend our lives trying to get wise. So if shame starts wearing the costume of wisdom, we actually start to value the shame.
How does shame sound like wisdom, practically? Give me an example.
It sounds like cynicism. It sounds like being realistic. Wisdom says, don't touch the hot stove. Shame says, don't try to love anyone because you'll just burn them.
Oh, wow.
It mimics the protective voice of wisdom. I'm staying away to protect them. I'm not hoping because I'm being smart. We mistake cynicism for intelligence.
And he follows that right up with, wore my distance like armor, called my running being strong.
There it is again, reframing weakness as strength.
You know, sitting here on the porch, watching the daylight fade, I think a lot of men specifically fall into this trap. Not to generalize, but we're kind of wired for it.
Oh, so? What do you mean?
Well, we're taught to be strong, to not show the cracks. So if you're hurting or if you've really messed up, the strong thing to do feels like shutting up and dealing with it alone.
Yeah.
Wearing the distance like armor. If I don't let you in, you can't see that I'm leading.
Yes. Stoicism is often just fear in a trench coat. He calls his running being strong, but really he's terrified. He's running away from the vulnerability of admitting he actually needs help.
Yeah.
Armor keeps things out, sure, but it also traps you inside. You suffocate in your own suit of armor.
So we have this guy, he's done the math, he's built his armor, he's decided his mess is bigger than grace. He is completely locked in.
And if the song ended right there, it would be a tragedy, a very accurate, well-written tragedy about the human condition. It would be an honest depiction of where a lot of people live their entire lives.
But then we hit the bridge. The music shifts, the tone changes, the subject changes. It stops being about I and starts being about mercy.
Yes. The perspective shifts from the internal monologue to an external reality. He finally stops looking in the mirror and looks at the window.
He sings, but mercy doesn't measure distance, doesn't flinch at what it finds.
Doesn't flinch. That is the key phrase for me.
Why does that stand out to you so much?
Think about human reaction. When someone confesses something truly awful to us, a deep betrayal, a crime, a moral failure, what's our physical reaction?
We flinch. We recoil.
It's instinct. We pull back to protect ourselves. We are shocked. But the song says mercy doesn't flinch. It implies that while we are horrified by our own mess, we're looking at it through our fingers, afraid to see the extent of it, mercy is not shocked.
It's seen it all.
Mercy has seen it all before. It doesn't gasp. It doesn't recoil.
It's completely unshockable.
Correct. And that is so important because the narrator's fear, that special sinner fear we talked about, is that if he really showed who he was, he would be rejected. But the song says mercy doesn't flinch. It looks at the wreckage and says, okay, I know what this is. I can work with this.
And then doesn't ask how long you wandered before it starts walking your way.
Which completely counters the math from the first chorus. Remember, he thought the reach was too short. that he was in a 12-foot hole with a 10-foot rope. Here, the song says mercy is active. It isn't static. It's not waiting at the finish line for you to clean yourself up and cross it. It starts walking your way.
It actively closes the gap.
It invalidates his entire calculation. If the destination is moving toward you, the distance doesn't matter. The math becomes irrelevant.
So the narrator has been sitting in the dark thinking he's miles away, doing all this complex calculus, but the whole time the solution has been approaching him.
Or perhaps it was never as far as he thought in the first place.
Which brings us to the final chorus. The lyrics change here. It's subtle, but it flips the whole narrative. I thought I was too far gone. Turns out I was just afraid to hope the door was open.
There is the pivot. The barrier wasn't the sin. The barrier wasn't the burned bridges. The barrier was fear.
Afraid to hope.
Because hope is risky. We said this earlier. If you hope the door is open, you have to actually walk up and turn the handle. And there's that split second of absolute terror that it might be locked, that you might be wrong.
That you might look foolish.
Exactly. But if you just assume it's locked, you never have to try. He realizes that his cowardice, his fear of hoping, was the only thing keeping him out.
It's almost a diagnosis change. He thought he had a terminal condition called bad person. Turns out he had a very treatable condition called scared person.
Spot on, and I really appreciate the honesty of the next lines. He doesn't say, and now everything is perfect and fixed. He says, I don't know how the road turns yet, don't know where this ends or starts.
That feels crucial to keeping the song grounded. It doesn't become a cheesy anthem.
It is crucial. That is what keeps this from being a fairy tale. He still has the mess. He still has the burned bridges. The consequences of his actions didn't magically disappear just because he had an epiphany. He still has to deal with the fallout.
The people he hurt are still hurt.
Yes, but the feeling has changed. But for the first time in a long time, I don't feel too far gone.
The paralysis is broken.
He doesn't know the destination, but he knows he's allowed to be on the road. He's no longer disqualified. He's back in the game.
And then the outro. Just one line, really sort of whispered at the very end. Maybe I never was.
That is the line that just leaves you sitting in silence.
Maybe I never was.
All that time, all that agonizing, all that talking to the dark, the distance was just a mental construct.
The door was never locked.
It was never locked. He was never out of reach. He just stopped reaching back. It reframes the entire song not as a story of a man who traveled far away, but of a man who stood in a room with his eyes closed, convinced he was lost in the wilderness.
That is a terrifying and hopeful thought at the exact same time. Terrifying because of how much time we waste. I mean, think of the years people lose to this mindset.
It's deeply tragic. We build these elaborate courtrooms in our heads. We present the evidence of our mess. We cite the lines we crossed. And we sentence ourselves to solitary confinement. We think we are doing justice. We think we are paying for our crimes.
But we're really just scared.
We're just scared. And the song suggests that if we could just stop the trial for a moment, stop listening to the shame that sounds like wisdom, we might notice that the jail cell door is wide open. The only thing keeping us inside is the story we're telling ourselves.
It really makes you think about what we're carrying right now. I mean, you, me, anyone listening to this.
It does. It forces the question.
So as the sun is pretty much gone now, I can barely see the fence line out there. Let's recap where we've been on this deep dive.
Well, we started with a man convinced by his own internal logic that he was beyond repair. We saw how he used pride and shame as armor to protect himself from the vulnerability of hope.
And we saw how he did the math, measuring his mess against his idea of grace, and got the numbers wrong because he didn't account for the fact that mercy actually moves.
And finally, we saw the realization that the distance was an illusion born of fear.
It's a journey from I know why nobody is listening to maybe I was never alone.
It's a beautiful, painful arc. And it's one that I think most of us have walked a portion of at one time or another.
Absolutely. Whether it's spiritual, relational, or just internal. We've all felt too far gone. We've all felt that the rope was just too short.
Here's a thought I want to leave with you, the listener, tonight. We talked about the lie the narrator believed, the lie that he was disqualified. I want you to ask yourself, what absolute truth about your own life are you clinging to right now that might just be fear in disguise?
That's a great question.
Are you telling yourself it's too late to change careers? It's too late to fix that relationship with your dad? I'm just a fundamentally angry person and I can't change. Are those objective truths? Or are they just armor you're wearing because trying to change is terrifying?
And to build on that, what if the armor you're wearing is actually the very thing that's hurting the people you think you're protecting by staying away? Is it really wisdom, or is it just shame talking?
Exactly. Because if the narrator of this song was wrong about being too far gone, maybe you're wrong about whatever it is you think you can't come back from.
That is definitely something to chew on while you're sitting on your own porch or driving home in the dark.
The road turns. We don't know where it goes, but we don't have to walk it alone.
Thanks for sitting with us for this one. It was a little different, a little quieter, but I think we really needed it.
I think we did too.
Take care of yourselves out there. And remember to check if the door is actually locked before you give up on walking through it. Good night.
Good night.